Alright, so I know you guys are pretty trigger happy with the dislike button, but let me just tell you that this title is not my opinion. Because last time I did this, or actually still to this day, I'm getting a swarm of dislikes. I wouldn't say the like to dislike ratio is too bad, you know, cause I got you guys who actually listen to me. And I clearly stated the first 10 seconds of that video that I'm a fan of Naruto. But I mean, people didn't listen and disliked regardless. So I guess I'm sad, but it is what it is. So if you are new to this series, or it just kind of became a series now, because this is the second episode to it. The first one is the Naruto one, which I'll link in the description if I don't forget. But essentially what I'll be doing today is that I'll be scrolling through the review section of my anime list for Hunter x Hunter 2011, not the 1999 version. And what we will be looking for today are the enlightenment reviews for this show. And I would assume that many of us are fans of Hunter x Hunter. I mean, it's quite a popular opinion. But with these enlightenment reviews, it will open our eyes up to why Hunter x Hunter is trash. And what are enlightenment reviews, you may be asking? Well, it's the reviews that are scored like this. Because right now, we are pretty close-minded. We're here just thinking, Hunter x Hunter is great, Hunter x Hunter is great. No, we need to hear the other side. And that is why I will be pulling up the most intellectual, well-constructed reviews, which will dissect every aspect of Hunter x Hunter. Or Hunter x Hunter. I mean, yeah, obviously people are gonna call me out for that. I'm sorry. But I'm gonna call it Hunter x Hunter, f you. And with these reviews, these enlightenment reviews, hopefully by going through these, it will make our brains bigger. So with that said, I do appreciate the support I got on my Naruto was trash and here's why video, you know, kinda got 8k likes, quite a lot I would say. So with that said, if you can get this video to 8k likes, then expect another episode to this series where, I don't know what series I'm gonna do next, so I guess comment that down below as well. And let's get into this first review, shall we? So here we are with our first review, with 177 people who found this helpful, which is quite reassuring to the credibility of this review. And oh wow, an overall rating of 1. Hunter x Hunter is one of the many overrated shonen anime out there, and I can summarize my review with one sentence. If you became kind of interested in Hunter x Hunter because you have heard it's so much more than just a shonen, don't believe it. Because it's exactly that. Just another shonen. Now, I'm not a fan of shonen, and if you read this review, you will find out why. So this anime is not made for me. But just for more diversity in views, I will analyze this anime a bit closer. Hunter x Hunter is one of those anime where you can literally see the quality dropping, with the early episodes being made nicely, and at the end it has one of the longest pacings I've ever seen. Wouldn't slowest be more grammatically correct? Never mind. Since the art isn't in any form detailed and costly, they can't tell me they ran out of money. I assume they just wanted to milk the cash cow to the end, and stretch manga material of 20 episodes, in relation to the beginning, to around 60. Like I said before, the start of the show was quite nice. It had a few things which didn't really make sense, especially the riddles, but it had a nice build up and good pacing. It seemed to me as if the star also really wanted to surprise the viewers with something unexpected, regardless of how illogical it was. It also didn't do much good in terms of atmosphere. In some cases, it even destroys the atmosphere it built up, just for surprise reasons. The main characters are also unexplained overpowered. Sure, there are a few stronger, but that alone doesn't justify a little kid being physically stronger than a well-trained, grown-up man, just because he grew up in the woods, which is, by the way, contradicted later on. But besides a few negative things to say, the start, first 17 to 20 episodes, maybe, was okay. It had a goal and set motivation from the character side. The main story kinda made sense, more than the rest of the show, and they had some kind of what the fans claim as tactics in fighting. In the second arc, the terror already begins. Motivations from the character were completely forgotten, and not even mentioned in order to have a little conflict for the goal of this arc. The reason for the first arc and what they have achieved was completely pointless, and even contradictory as explained in the later arcs. The following arcs shine with not knowing what to call some things. Notice how you put some things instead of some things. For the show, an assassin is someone who is physically strong and can endure much pain, instead of being stealthy and deadly. The so-called mafia is a bunch of unorganized idiots who apparently have a lot of power. They at least have a lot of money, which is contradictory in every way. And let me question the whole world building of this anime, and we still don't know what a hunter is and does. The writers have no idea how money works, which wouldn't be a problem if they hadn't dedicated a whole arc just for money getting purposes, which later on is also completely useless. Not to forget, the story is full of convenience, which goes beyond the acceptable amount. Wait, who dictates the acceptable amount? Some of the arcs are complete fillers since they either are pointless or have nothing to do with the final goal. In parentheses, the motivation of the main character. I'm kind of just blindly reading this and I actually lost like what this dude is talking about, so if you guys can explain down below in the comments, I would really appreciate that. There is even one arc where the main character is inside a video game and literally the first thing he hears there is that being here is completely pointless, but he doesn't care and goes on anyway, which makes the whole arc pointless and questions the existence of the build up to it. I absolutely agree. Greed Island is so pointless and I just don't understand why Togashi thought it was a good idea to implement that. Just come on, dude. This show becomes less endurable from arc to arc, with the Mafia arc being an exception, but still not good. It's like comparing a pile of with a pile of which has a cherry on top of it. Seeing the later arcs lets you remember the earlier ones, as if they were in any way good. That's how horrible this show gets. Well said, 100% agree with you there, buddy. Hunter x Hunter also likes to copy and elucidate everything that was or is popular, it seems. That goes from character design, RoboCop, even to whole story arcs. In parentheses, the video game arc, which includes card games like Magic: The Gathering. A thing that really bothers me as well is the fact that this show has no scale whatsoever. The abilities and the strength of every character are so completely random and out of order. It even shifts during the whole anime, making character who should be strong considering their rank utterly weak, and character who should be weak unnecessarily strong, or unnecessary strong. I'm sorry. It's like as if one writer wrote the hierarchy of all the characters and their relationship, and then another decided because how much he liked their appearance and how strong they are. All of the above was pretty much the first half of the show. The show was, like I said, very bad, but had at least some arcs which were watchable and had a decent pacing. From episode 80 onwards, the Chimera Arc takes place. This is basically the main difference between the original version of the Hunter x Hunter anime and the 2011 version. The Chimera Arc is the worst thing I have seen in a long time in terms of writing. You can't take anything they say and do seriously. Since the character design is so freaking retarded, they say they are ants, but then a penguin and a pink panda in a suit is sitting there with them. None of the so-called ant villains looks even remotely like an ant. The writers wanted to make this arc dark and mature, but only showed how childish their writing is. Wow, characters are dying more often now, but that's about it with all the change they made. As if character dying equals mature and dark. This is the most naive way of seeing it, but it fits a shonen. Hey, you tell him, boy. In this arc, Hunter x Hunter really shows how little time they spend with thinking through the whole thing. Where villains came from and what their motivation is was never a thing Hunter x Hunter spends any time in, but in this case it makes absolutely no sense that some ant people who just came into existence are able to be as strong as one of the strongest person in the whole anime. So again, no scale existent. And with no time spent with motivation and personification, the writers now believe they could put drama in the show when the villains die. Are you freaking kidding me? Yeah, the ants just killed hundreds, if not thousands of people, and now I should feel sorry for them? The drama in this anime is the worst sort of melodrama. Forced and reliable, so much on double standards. I agree, so much on the double standards. In the last arc, the tactics really shine. In terms of sucking. He got us there. In the last 50 episodes, there is only one fight anyways, so there is not much to talk about. But the tactics there is so utterly idiotic. There is so much bullshit that happened during this arc. There was not one episode where I wasn't facepalming. Let's just hope it didn't get to a point of brain damage. But all of the above would have been minor points if it wasn't for how boring this whole arc was. The reason I criticize their tactics is only because they spend so much time with talking, and every fan thinks the tactics are so great. 90% of the time they talk about irrelevant stuff, and when it comes to the real tactics, they are utterly bullshit. Convenience or Deus Ex Machina. Wow, that is some big brain vocabulary. Like, see guys, this guy's a true intellectual. You guys should be really listening to the wise words he's preaching right now. Characters of this show are not in any terms special. Have you seen either Naruto, One Piece, Bleach? You know the personality of the main character. Add a bunch of extra typical side characters and you got them all. It's just the typical teenager character who is strong enough to change the world and stuff. In Hunter x Hunter, they at least didn't go full overpowered with the main character. But considering the age of the protagonist and the enemies he is fighting later on, I would say it's pretty unrealistic. He is a very wish-fulfilling character and not that much of a role model. I think there is nothing wrong with a wish-fulfilling kind of anime, but they are really nothing for people older than their demographic, in mind of course. So saying this is more than a shonen is really wrong. Music is also pretty bad. Whew, okay, that's a pretty bold statement you got there, fella. All the good songs were copies of famous classical songs, such as Lacrimos, I'd never heard of, okay, from Mozart's Requiem. The rest is rather forgettable, boring background music. Art style is simple, and character design in the whole show is the worst I have ever seen. But that's of course only my opinion. I found it to be nice to see no CGI, if I remember correctly. So overall, this show is not more than a shonen, and I might add the worst written shonen I have ever seen. But I am not into that genre, so I only saw a few of them. If you are a person who likes more mature stuff and think there is something behind this anime, otherwise it wouldn't be so popular, don't fall for the trap and stay away from it. At the end, you will just regret it. Well said, my friend. Well said. So after this review, would you guys consider Hunter x Hunter a quality watch? Absolutely not. Come on guys, he said it best. This show got no good character designs, the music was trash, and the only good songs are copies from Mozart's Requiem. But if you are not convinced that Hunter x Hunter is a terrible show, well guess what? I have a treat for you. Another quality review. Hunter x Hunter is the most overrated anime series I've ever watched. I've never seen a fanbase more toxic and elitist than Hunter x Hunter fans. All of these people just constantly praise this anime and talk about how well written it is. But in reality, that isn't true. In reality, this is just another garbage battle shonen series like the rest of them. It isn't complex, it isn't well written at all. It's nothing but complete and utter dog shit. Hunter x Hunter is about a kid named Gon Freaks that becomes a hunter and wants to find his dad someday. This is the worst story I've ever seen in a shonen anime. I'll be explaining why I say this later on in this review. Hunter x Hunter has one thing going for it: the Yoruu arc. Every other arc in this show was complete and utter garbage, and I'll explain why. First, we have the Hunter exam arc. This was just a pathetic version of the Chunin exams. Who's gonna tell him? It just feels way too slow and boring. This was the first arc in the series, and it just failed to attach me to any of the characters. There was just no reason to like any of these characters at all. Gon was the typical generic shonen protagonist, Killua was the typical edgy kid, Kodaka was the cliche revenge character. The only character that was interesting was Leorio. All of the trials in this arc were boring to watch, and that's pretty much it. The mini tournament was also uninteresting / boring. Next, we have the Zoldyck family arc. What a waste of time. I actually thought something big would happen in this arc, but this, unfortunately, wasn't the case. They just go into the mansion and then get Killua and then leave. This arc should have been longer and actually gave more depth to Killua's family. Wait, wasn't this the same dude that was complaining about having like slow and boring pacing? Never mind. In the end, I didn't give a single shit about his family and any other character involved in this arc. And as usual, we get the stupid friendship / nakama bullshit in this arc. This is why I say Hunter x Hunter is nothing different from the typical shonen, because it still has that nakama bullshit. Well shit, I guess friendship is illegal in anime. Heaven's Arena was just so boring, it nearly made me fall asleep multiple times. Togashi actually made an interesting concept for this arc, but then completely ruins it. He ruins it by making the whole arc a damn training arc. Yeah, character development is trash. I honestly 100% agree. This just doesn't make sense to me. This arc was way too focused on training instead of the actual Heaven's Arena. This is one of my biggest problems with Hunter x Hunter in general. This series just has way too much training and less story to it. None of the villains were interesting at all. They were just the typical cliche villains you'd see in any shonen. The fights were complete and utter garbage. It's funny how they spend so much time training, yet when Gon finally fights Hisoka, it's nothing but hand-to-hand combat for the most part. So much training, yet he doesn't even know how to use real techniques. In fact, he doesn't even know how to use real techniques until 60 episodes. Next is the Yoruu arc, a very good arc. Almost everything about this arc is actually phenomenal, but there are some problems. Firstly, the main two characters are so annoying. I just couldn't stand it. Uvigin was a very generic character and just not interesting to me. The rest of the Phantom Troop all lacked depth to them, so I just didn't find them to be good villains. Such a shame. The best thing about this arc was Kodaka and his character development. Kodaka is the only character in Hunter x Hunter with good development. The rest of the main characters are complete and utter garbage with no redeeming qualities. Also, the fight between Uvigin and Kodaka was pretty cool. Hey, hold up, my man's praising the show. Greed Island is one of the most pointless and boring arcs I've seen in a shonen. Once again, this arc is filled with boring training that no one gives a shit about. Togashi made an interesting concept for this arc, just to ruin it by making it a training arc. He just doesn't know how to balance things out, and this arc is the perfect example. Them collecting cards was painfully boring to watch. Wait, what? Didn't he just compliment the whole arc, like the whole concept? I mean, that was kind of the whole point of that arc, to collect them cards. Like, that's the goal of the game. And then now he calls it boring to watch. What? Just make up your mind, man. The card system wasn't explained in detail, so that was boring. We don't know what any of these cards are or do, so I got bored with all the card collecting bullshit. The main villain has got to be one of the worst villains I've ever seen in a shonen series. No depth whatsoever. He's just the typical one-dimensional villain that's evil just for the sake of being evil. See, it's funny how Hunter x Hunter fans talk about how well written this anime is, but I just don't see it. Characters like Genthru clearly contradict that statement, and there's no debating about this. The fights in this arc were really bad. Gon vs Genthru was filled with plot armor. It was just laughable. He should have easily lost that fight, but he just wins because of 100% plot armor. Greed Island could have been a good arc, but it was just ruined by many things. Bad villains, boring training, and barely any explanation to the card system. For someone who gets bored easily, I mean, I don't think you would want to sit through that, to be honest, but anyways. The world of Greed Island had zero detail, none whatsoever. This just feels like a filler arc overall. One of the worst arcs in shonen. Yeah, to be honest, like, I always knew there was something worse than the Great Ninja War arc. The Chimera Ant arc has got to be one of the most overrated shonen arc I've ever seen. This is the most boring arc I've ever watched in an anime. The first 20 episodes of it were extremely slow paced and dragged on way too long. There was just far too much underdeveloped characters. I don't know about the grammar they're getting screen time, so it was just ridiculous. The narration was the worst part about this arc. It completely ruined this arc in many ways. Firstly, the narration happened in some of the most important parts of the arc. When they were raiding the palace, I just completely lost interest because of the narration. This man was narrating for almost the entire episode. It was just ridiculous. The fact that there needs to be narration in order to have people understand what's happening is just stupid. Firstly, it's an insult to the viewers. Oh, okay, my man's offended. It's like they think the viewers are too stupid to understand what's going on, so there needs to be narration all the time. That's the impression I'm getting from this. Alright, Karen, I see where you're coming from. Secondly, there's a lot of shonen out there that don't need narration to tell a good story. Now, when it comes to fights, this arc has one of the most overrated fights I've ever seen. First, we have Gon vs Neferpito. And to prevent those from getting spoiled, I don't know who's watching this and has not ever seen Hunter x Hunter, so I'm gonna save you. And you can skip to this timestamp right here to skip whatever I'm gonna say, because it's major spoilers. Anyways, back to the review. Gon gets a random ass pull power up and beats the shit out of her. It was really fucking stupid to see Gon so mad about what happened to Kite anyways. He barely even fucking knew him, yet he's crying like a bitch when he dies. This just makes no sense whatsoever. And this was just bad writing at its finest. He only knew him for 2 weeks and he went ape shit when he found out what happened to him. This was just pathetic writing. Next overrated fight, Myriam vs Netero. You imagine hyping up a villain for 50 episodes just for him to have no cool techniques or anything. His fight with Netero was so boring. He just gets smacked away and flies right back at him. The only good thing about this fight was the animation. Everything else was complete and utter garbage as expected. It's funny to me how this anime tried to have strategic battles in its early stages. Later on, it just became the typical battle shonen with power levels. Gon vs Hisoka and Gon vs Genthru had some strategy, but Myriam vs Netero was a terrible fight and was just about who has the higher power level. There's no good reason why Myriam is strong either. He has no techniques or anything. That's why that fight was complete trash. Well said, my guy. Well said. Now let's talk about the battle system in Hunter x Hunter. The battle system is actually pretty good. Togashi puts so much detail into the battle system, but there is a problem here. The problem is that a ton of fights in which the battle system doesn't even matter. Like, why put so much detail into the power system when the fights just end up being the typical shonen fights? Myriam vs Netero is the perfect example of this. This fight was just another typical DBZ type of fight you see in anime. All I'm saying is, if you're going to spend so much time putting detail into the power system, at least make it important in every fight. Remember how I said Hunter x Hunter had the worst story I've ever seen in a shonen? I'll explain why I said that right now. Gon's goal was finding his dad, right? Spoiler, and yeah, skip to this timestamp to skip this spoiler for those who have not watched or read Hunter x Hunter. But anyways, let the spoiler commence. After the death of Netero, every one hunter has to attend the election. This is when Gon meets his dad. This is the most garbage thing I've ever seen. After all those arcs trying to find clues to know his dad's whereabouts, this is how they meet. What was the point in Yoruu? What was the point in Greed Island? This is the most unsatisfying thing I've ever seen in an anime. After all that hard work, Gon ends up meeting Jing in the stupidest way possible. Wow, I could not agree more. He is preaching. Speaking about the election arc, this arc was complete trash. The only interesting thing about it was Yoruu, of course, and what he said about Jing. Everything else was bad. Alika was a terrible character. Goodness, this man's hop all over the place. She was just a living plot device, and that's all there was to this character. Nothing about this arc was good, and that's all there is to it. If that isn't the truth. Now let's talk about the characters. There's only one good character in Hunter x Hunter, and that would be Kodaka. Wait, what happened to Yoruu? He's the only character with interesting character development. Gon's character development was complete trash, and another spoiler, so skip to this timestamp once more. But getting into this spoiler line, once again, you have been warned, specifically talking about when Kite died, and of course he put spoiler there, but not before. Wow, very nice. That was just awful development. Killua had some development, but I disliked him due to his constant change in personalities. One second he's the typical 12-year-old, the second he's edgy as hell. His character development is very basic as well. Yoruu could have been a good character, but unfortunately he was neglected for like 90% of the anime. It pisses me off how the only decent characters barely got any screen time at all. Myriam is incredibly overrated. He's just the typical I want to rule the world type of villain. His character development was very basic and nothing special at all. His development is pretty much him becoming more of a good guy due to Komugi's influence. Oh wow, a villain that becomes a good guy. Wow, that's such great writing, isn't it? __ face. I've seen character development like his in a lot of anime, so I don't get why people suck him off so hard. Overall, Hunter x Hunter has bad characters. Hunter x Hunter has terrible art. Oh god. Not only in the manga, but in the anime as well. This anime has some of the most ugly character designs I've seen in a shonen. There's just way too many ugly looking characters. It just looks so childish. There's nothing interesting about the music or animation either. Wait, didn't he just compliment the animation for the Netero versus Myriam fight? Or I mean, I guess I was just imagining it. The music was very unmemorable to me, and the animation isn't anything special. Overall, this anime was horrible. The only enjoyable arc in this anime was the Yoruu arc, and that's it. Everything else about this anime was boring and painful to watch. I don't recommend watching this anime. Wait, what? Wait, why not? There's just so much other anime to watch that are much better. If you're looking for a badass shonen with awesome fights and great characters, go watch Yu Yu Hakusho. They are both written by the same mangaka, but at least Yu Yu Hakusho is enjoyable to watch. The Dark Tournament and Chapter Black Arc are both better than anything I've seen in Hunter x Hunter. Wow, what a review. So did anyone convert to the other side yet? No? Well, guess what? Let's seal the deal and go over one final review, which is quite short compared to the last two that were damn near long enough to fill a page on the Bible. But here we go with the final review that should enlighten you to the fact that, I mean, you could read the title. It's right there. 0 out of 10. Don't waste your time. That alone, I don't even think I have to read the rest of the review because, like, he already told you. 0 out of 10. It doesn't even deserve a 1. But after several long weeks, finally managed to watch all the episodes of this terrible show. Without giving away any spoilers, I can tell you there is little substance to this show. This show is all over the place, and the main character is a stubborn kid with no real focus on accomplishing his main goal. We are introduced to the new characters throughout the entire show, and none of their stories are fully fleshed out. There are often times when the main storyline has something interesting happening, but then for 3 to 4 episodes, we are stuck watching random side characters overthink minor details. By the time we get back to the main story, all the tension that kept you on the edge of your seat is gone, and the resolution is often anticlimactic. You know a show is poorly written when they have to waste minutes and sometimes even entire episodes to explain why a certain action would have the consequences that it does. A good show would set up the conditions for its magic, and then through action show what happens. Example: Death Note. We are told about the rules of the notebook, and then throughout the show we see it put to action. The narration doesn't have to literally tell us that killing certain people will result in the protagonist being discovered as a murderess. We are trusted as an audience to just know that. In Hunter x Hunter, we are held by our hands and literally told what the consequences of an action would be. Nothing is left for the viewer to figure out. Oh, and that's it? See, and that's what I like. Short, sweet, and straight to the point. And now I believe, like, you know, at the beginning of this, I was like, yo, Hunter x Hunter is great. But now, after going through these quality and exquisite reviews, it really enlightened me to the fact that Hunter x Hunter is poo-poo. And I hope this ray of enlightenment reached your soul too. But anyways, hope you all did enjoy this video. And of course, before I go, I would like to thank Musashi and my other Patreons for supporting this channel and myself through Patreon. Very much appreciated. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.